remote public participation is allowed using the Zoom program. We can go right into it and call the meeting to order and start with a roll call. We have Lars.
Here.
Jeff. Margie.
Here.
And myself. And that is everybody for now. Do we have someone that would like to move on the approval of the minutes for June 2nd, 2021?
I move.
Any discussion? Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Lars. The minutes have been approved for June 2nd.
I need to take a vote. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Hey,
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, now it's
All right.
approved.
There we go. Thank you. And I would like to we did try to do a little bit more than just the action minutes. Is this an appropriate level for you all?
I didn't understand that.
So at the last meeting, there was a request to provide a little bit more context than just the actual actions
Okay.
taken. And so I just wanted to check in on that since we did that this time. All right. I'll take the silence as a it's okay the way we're doing them now.
Okay, let's move forward because we have a public comment. So we have Jason Brown, and I think we can just go right into your public comments, not for a non-agenda item. Hi, Jason.
Hi, yeah, good morning. Thank you. And thank you all for giving me an opportunity to talk to you this morning. I just wanted to talk briefly about a project, a public art project I was hoping to get Sebastopol involved with. I've seen it around other jurisdictions, and I just think it's a wonderful way to get art down at the street level for all the citizens to enjoy and for tourists to enjoy. It's a utility box public art mural project. A lot of jurisdictions I've seen have done it. Some that I've visited, such as Fort Collins in Colorado or Bozeman in Montana. I've visited these towns, and I've left with this really positive feeling about the city, and it was just really from walking around and enjoying the sights, maybe walking to the coffee shop or whatever you're doing. But while you're moving around cities that have these sorts of programs, you're being sprinkled with these beautiful pieces of art just all along the way on the corners or in the alleyways and on all of these utility boxes that we all see everywhere that are oftentimes covered with graffiti or stickers or various colors of paint that are intended to cover up, previous vandalism. I'm sure you can all relate to that description. My wife and I were just walking down to the Barlow the other day from our house just on the south side of town, and we passed 6 utility boxes that had graffiti or spray paint trying to cover graffiti over those things. And it's just an example of such a great opportunity we have to allow artists to propose pieces of art on these boxes so that we can all enjoy them just as we're spending our day moving about town. And in addition to that, we rely pretty heavily on tourism. And I think it has a real positive effect on a visitor's experience in the town and the reviews that they might offer to others as they go back to wherever they've come from. I was just...
I just has everyone read all the emails that have been going back and forth about this? Everyone is familiar with this?
No, Margie, that's why he's here to talk.
Okay, well, I thought everyone else had.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we can't do that because of quorum and public Brown Act requirements. That's why I asked Jason to come to this meeting.
Okay, I received many.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think others, some are others, but Jeff, you didn't. Okay.
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about that and see if there's any way that the city would be interested in such a program. I know we would. I know that the city of Sebastopol does not own these utility boxes, and I understand with talking with some other program leaders in other towns that is an obstacle. A lot of places own their utility boxes, and it becomes a little bit of an easier process. I know I've personally tried to talk with PG&E about this project, and they are set in their ways a little bit. I think they would need to be encouraged a little bit to want to play along. I know some of the other boxes are owned by companies such as AT&T or other communications companies. So I think if there's some way for the city to get interested and get involved with these utility companies, and then of course we have to figure out a way to fund it. But I just think it's such a wonderful opportunity that I wanted to present and to see if there's any way we could try to get that moving forward. That's really all I wanted to say, I guess.
Thank you, Jason. I know I have a bunch of questions, but from what I'm understanding is that we could request, if everybody's interested, to put this on the agenda for next month. And if everybody would like to see that happen, go ahead and say yes, and we'll try to get Terry to put it on the agenda so we can discuss this further and possibly take the month to do a little bit of research as well.
Right, and Jason, just so you know, because of state Brown Act requirements, we can't go into a full discussion right now because it's not on the agenda. But I definitely want to appreciate your coming to this meeting so we can get this kind of started in a way that involves the Public Art Committee, which is, I think, the appropriate committee to work on this. And yeah, Jeff, Jen, or if committee members do have questions for Mr. Brown, you can certainly ask those at this time.
Anybody have any questions for Jason then?
Okay, and I'll just add a couple of notes in terms of if the committee wants to agendize this. I have heard from the Downtown Association, or at least the president or former president when I first got here, with interest in this type of a project as well. And yes, the owners of the utility boxes are somewhat an issue. I have contact Caltrans, and I actually just saw in my email this morning a couple other contacts, one for PG&E, who I think is more responsive because I've dealt with him on other logistical stuff in town. So hopefully someone who's, maybe a little bit more local at PG&E may be able to do that thing. If we wanted to proceed without the utility permissions, I think that's certainly something that I want to talk with the city attorney and administration about. But I certainly have seen sort of rogue art in that way. I'm just not sure the city could sponsor something like that without the utilities permissions.
Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, so let's move forward. I would like to bring that up in the next meeting and just discuss like what we could actually do with him. Moving on though, do we have any statements of conflict of interest? Okay, we can move into the regular agenda for sculpture garden update. Margie, do you want to do that or Carrie?
Well, I can do.
Margie
two.
should.
Do you want to,
I said, I think Margie should. She did a great site visit.
That was an awesome picture.
Yeah, so the platforms are in. It's rolling. The call has gone out and been posted. A couple things. One is I'm wondering, Jeff, when you were contacting people, did you contact, I don't recall, people in Cloverdale? I was just looking at the Cloverdale Art Trail again. And did you contact the artists, the specific artist, and or the Cloverdale organization?
Not specific artists. Contacted Joyce Mann, with the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail, who, according to her, is representative of quite a few artists in the Cloverdale area.
Great, thank you. Secondly, I wanted to bring up the issue of the signage, the immediate signage. I think it was really important that we have, I don't know if you noticed, but I did go down and write in chalk. It's kind of a bumpy sidewalk, so it was a little rough. But anyway, immediate sign, it doesn't have to be very fancy, but on both ends of the trail to let people know what those are. And also discuss what, again, it's more specifically about arranging for signage for the actual sculpture garden. And then the other issue that a few people, when I was out there, mentioned to me was about just to consider preventing vandalism, either spray painting vandalism, or apparently skateboarders like to skate along the edge of things and kind of wears the edges away. So Carrie, do you have any information on the signage and or vandalism?
So I
prepared?
do think it makes sense to have some sort of signs, home of future. I'm thinking maybe it's home of the future sculpture garden, or Sebastopol Sculpture Garden. And so I don't know if someone from this committee could put together like an 8.5 by 11, and we can sort of blow it up to 11 by 17. Get some laminated signs, just on some sticks or sort of yard sign kind of stuff out there. I think that makes sense. It'd be great to include a link to the call for artists. That way, if people are actually interested in submitting or finding out more about the project, then there's a way for them to do that. But yeah, I think if someone from this committee is able to do the signs, we can probably get them out this week with Public Works.
I think we have somebody on the committee that's her.
Margie, if you want to send me all the info, I can design the sign and then put it into whatever size you want.
Thank you very much.
Send me everything you want on it, literally, and then I'll put it.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah, I can do that today.
Thank
Great.
you. And then Carrie, so Jen would design it and then send that to you, and then what's the?
Yeah, if you send me the file, Jen, I'll get it printed and laminated and up.
It would just be at the one side and the other side as you enter the path.
That was my idea. If anybody has any other comments or suggestions.
I had responded with the possibility of a sign that speaks to just the graffiti and or vandalism, trying to phrase it in a positive way, that possibly would just be posted on the sides of the platforms. So in other words, you have the signs at either end that have the overall future and the link, et cetera, you just talked about, but also something different that just addresses respecting the concrete platforms. And that could just be 8.5 by 11, I think, and would probably fit on the facing or the elevation side of those platforms, or several of them anyway.
I will say that I don't think skateboarding is an issue, only because these are in the middle of grass, and
Yeah.
how would somebody
Right.
skateboard
I
through
agree.
grass up to those?
Mhm.
So I don't think like the little skateboard pieces of metal would be necessary there. If
Right.
it was on the sidewalk, yeah, but I mean, yeah, for painting, maybe we could say something more like not to do graffiti.
Yeah, I agree. I think graffiti would probably be the biggest risk because skateboarders have to be able to go from one paved area downhill onto the concrete platforms.
There are two that, one especially that are near a sidewalk. And I'm not a
They have
skateboard.
to be continuous, basically.
Okay, so they don't jump. Jump.
not really from, it's going to be below, like downhill. They have to jump up to the platform. I think,
Okay.
no, the answer is,
Tough, but
I'm
Okay,
sure someone might want to try it, but the chances are incredibly small, I'd say.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so,
I think it'd be nice to create something at each platform, like you could put, you could spray your graffiti here instead of on the platform. So it's like a little cutout person, coming off the platform. Future sculpture here, if you feel like doing any graffiti, do it right here on this. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Just being.
well, that might give someone an idea they didn't have.
Possibly.
Uh,
What I've always heard from folks is both people who presented to this committee and maybe from this committee as well, is that if there are murals or artwork out there, that graffiti artists tend not to tag those things. They tend to like the blank walls. And yes, I get that, so these are nice blank canvases at this moment, but perhaps if they are aware that it is future art, that would help.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate, Margie, your intuition that we should probably get some signs up, at least help.
So could we have maybe Jeff to write the text, send it to Jen for the to put at each, so there'll be 8 of them at each platform. And then Carrie, can you also, in addition, have those produced and attached?
Yeah, and so just to be clear, so we'll have a sign at each end,
Mhm.
and then one. How did you want it applied to the platform?
What was your idea, Jeff?
Well, how you apply it's another issue. Maybe Lars has an idea, but because I don't know if some kind of tape or adhesive is going to really hold it on the sides of the concrete that well, but maybe it could be staked right against.
Yeah.
Right, like a yard sign just right at
Yeah.
them. Okay.
Right.
I think that makes more sense.
Possible.
Then. Yeah,
Great.
I'm thinking duct tape, but that is
No.
we don't want to leave marks on tape marks on the concrete either.
I think that's a good point, Jeff. Just stake it right in front of the platform.
And we probably don't need to put it on all of them, just the ones that are probably, one on each side. That's just what I'm throwing out instead of covering every single one. What are people's thoughts about that?
If the expense is not too great to the city or something, I think it'd be nice at each one, like that, it's a coming soon on all of these platforms is what would be a nice way to say it. And you could even, put the city council or our committee's name, right, that they see it's an official city thing, might help deter people as well.
All right, and Jen, I can send you the city's logo. So I think that would be great to add. Yeah.
So I need to be clearer, I guess. So we're talking about 2 different signs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So Jen's going to receive all the information to do a draft of the 2 major signs that'll be on either end as people pass the sculpture garden, and then a smaller sign that pretty much addresses respecting the concrete platforms.
Yes. And I was thinking like for the platform ones that are kind of like long and not too high, kind of like the platform. So they kind of, and the other one more kind of like square or something, or rectangle.
well, long would be hard to put on a stake, right? So if they were both just 11 by
Okay.
17,
Yeah, yeah.
right, it'd be easy
Okay.
to stake in, and then however many everybody thinks, if we have one at each one that says coming soon, if you're a sculptor, please apply, and here's the call for artists, and that could just be at all of them, and we could have maybe respect our space anti-graffiti signs at each end or something.
I thought
Unless you want to put one at each, there's
I thought we were talking about putting that information at each end and then having a smaller sign at each platform, just saying future site of, this platform is for the future site of the community sculpture garden. Please respect, do not vandalize,
Okay,
Something like that you could write, Jeff, and send to Jen.
Yeah, I'll send a draft of it to at least two of us. Is that good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
good,
Yeah.
good.
you got anything else on the sculpture garden, Margie?
I don't, does anyone else have anything they want to?
I'm just curious. So the call's out. Anybody heard anything? Any rumblings?
My next question.
So I know we had a couple of people who had requested the call, Beth from Sculpture Jam, and I think one other person. So we got those out to them. And I did get one question as well. I think I CC'd Margie when I replied to that in case they had future more technical questions on it. So a little bit, but definitely if you know anyone from the various art organizations and feel like reaching out to them personally and seeing if they're sort of reminding them of that would be great.
So I had a question. Was the call emailed to those email addresses on that list?
Yes. Rebecca emailed them out to that whole list that you had sent us, Jeff. So thank you.
Okay, great.
And I'll send a note to Warren, just reminding him to, because he had a lot of those contacts himself personally.
Yeah.
And I like Jen's idea about putting a note on the entrance and exit signage with the call for artists, mentioning a call. And you were thinking maybe putting the little thing that you can, I forget what those are called, that you can go online.
Oh, the QWERTY code, QR code thing. Is that what
Yeah.
you're? I
Yeah.
don't know how to do those, but Jen, if you do, that's awesome.
I could make you a bit link, which is really short.
Yes.
That would be great. Yeah. That's
Okay,
fine.
because that's just, it's, it's impossible to put something like that on a sign, but it'd be really easy for me to shorten it. And
Yeah, the tiny URL kind of a thing. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Also, I had reached out to the Petaluma Public Arts Committee, and I think I sent that info to Jeff. You know if those names at all got onto the email list, or should I send those out separately?
Petaluma Arts Center.
Public Arts Committee.
Jen, I would say go ahead and send it. I don't think if I don't see any issue with someone getting it from two different places, especially since the first one went out a few weeks ago. That's a good reminder.
Mhm.
I'll do that today also.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Margie or?
Not a question, but just a thought that if for whatever reason, as the deadline approaches, we find that we haven't received too many responses, what will our next steps be?
So we can always extend the call. Now, I recall with the library, and I realized the library art was a commission piece, so that's a little different, but I think we got an awful lot of those in the last 2 or 3 days. I don't know if that means artists are procrastinators or if they were just working really hard on it. But what I would say is, there's two options. One is if we have a number of sculptures, we can look at those. And I don't know if you want to set a number. So say if we have 10 and there's 8 sculptures, 8 sculpture pads, if that's enough and you want to review, or we can extend it a couple of weeks and do another big push. I can certainly see if Holly can push it a bit on Facebook, and we do have some budget, to boost and promote those via Facebook and get it up to the top and pushed out to people. So we can do that beforehand. That last, in a week or so, in the newsletter, the city website, and we can also have, when Rebecca's back from vacation on the 26th, I can have her send out a reminder to all those organizations as well of the coming deadline. So I'd say that for the PR part of it, if we need to, we can extend the deadline. If I think you could also look at what you have. I don't know if it's the preference to have like the full set and do the full thing at once, or if you wanted to do, if you don't have very many, look at what you do have and see if there are, some, like if you want to do half of the pads now and then do another call for the second half of them. It's up to the committee in that regards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask another question about the call? When you open the link, on my end anyway, because of the final page, which is the Ives Park map, it makes all the other pages really, really tiny. And then you have to, has anybody noticed that? So
Yes,
I don't know,
yes.
do you need that last page on the call so it can just open as a normal size? Because, I know a lot of people may not be as computer savvy as some. So you have to increase the size of the PDF in order to read it at all. Could we just make all the pages the same size so it just comes up a little bit easier and nobody has to make any adjustments?
Thank you.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, my reader automatically makes it the right
Yeah, mine didn't either.
thing.
Yeah,
So I
mine
didn't
comes up
realize that was a potential issue.
This, right? So then it looks really, really, every other page is really tiny.
Yes.
So it can
Interesting.
fit the bottom page on my
Well,
end.
what we can do is I can simply extract that out.
Do we need the last page, right? That's my question, because we could just make it the same size.
Or put a link
I think
to it
now that the
that
pads
people
are
can
in
click.
place, we might be able to just take that page out, and because the pads are in place, they can go see them now. It's not,
Yes.
that was maybe there for a little bit more context before the pads were there.
Yes, and you're going to put a little comment in there that those pads are in place and people can go look.
Yeah, because I think we still want to make sure they know where it is.
Mhm, mhm. That
Okay.
sounds great. Thanks, Jen. That was important.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I will put that on my to-do list, and I've already emailed Dante about getting the signs up for later this week. So
Wonderful. Okay. Any other comments, questions for the sculpture garden?
No, okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
We'll go to the second agenda item, public arts project updates. I'm sure that's for Carrie.
sure, I don't have a huge number of updates. I think I had sent out, actually, this was after our last meeting, I think. Michael McGinnis's artwork has all of the components cut now, so he's working on the fabrication. I think you all saw the imagery, but just for the public record, since that was just an email out to all of you. I don't have a final schedule for implementation from him yet, but obviously he's busy working away on the fabrication parts of it. So. And I am waiting to hear from Ned Kahn to finalize the contract amendment. And he is also working with his geotech engineer, since we do for the permitting, given that its height, the building department does want to make sure that it has to review the foundations for it to make sure it isn't a falling over hazard. So I know Ned is working on that with his geotech.
And Gary, related to that, any updates on the AmeriCorps Trail?
Yeah, so I have, I just got a couple of things. I was out last week, but I saw on Friday, I think it was, the draft easement language that we need, and they are absolutely incorporating in the artwork public art, and we left it general, not just for this component, but if other artwork was, we did want to place other artwork along the trail at some point in the future. So that is an allowed use within that area. And we just received, in terms of putting that project out to bid, we also received comments back from Caltrans for their review of it, since it connects in with their street, with Highway 12. And we need their approval. And I think they had one minor adjustment, which was they wanted the pergola out of their right of way. So that would either be set back, or we'll decide whether or not if we need to for budgets, eliminate it and just leave the sculpture as the inviting into that area. But we'll at this point we'll just be, for the bidding of it, we'll put we'll just move the pergola back out of their right of way.
And the signage on that for Ned's?
Haven't done any progress on that. I don't know if did we have a couple of people from this group who were going to work on what that might look like?
Not that I know of.
Is there interest in this group in doing something like that, or working with Ned in terms of what kind of signage he would like?
Yeah, I thought kind of Ned, that was Ned's, from Ned, that would come from Ned, but maybe not.
Now
Okay,
that
I can ask
Warren's
Ned.
not here, he was the one that was in touch with Ned. So does somebody else want to be that person that's our lead contact with Ned?
I guess I can do that. I've been in touch with him before.
Thanks, Marky.
Just
Yeah,
one thought I had about the signage, though, depending on how permanent we're talking, there may want to be a discussion about, making it such so that as future sculpture goes in, there's some kind of, continuity to the signage in terms of the size of the font, the design, et cetera. So, people feel that things are related throughout the city.
I envision like a kind of a plaque attached to the sculpture base.
Mhm.
Like a metal plaque or something.
In the case of the library, that's going to be a plaque, attached to the wall or in the garden in front of the sculpture? Or?
So I do recall that Michael had a preference. I think he had a preference about the signage or not having signage. So if you don't mind, I'd like to contact him about that. And just, I don't remember. I remember the discussion, but I don't remember what the comment or the outcome or the preference was on that.
I would love to even just see something, whether Michael wants any sign or not, but it would be really nice to say something like sponsored by the Public Arts Committee, Sebastopol Public Arts Committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I think about it, I think he did not want his.
Or
Yeah, I think he was
commissioned
okay with the identification, and I think that makes sense in terms of the Public Art Committee and City of Sebastopol. I think he did not want the description, because he wanted people to do their own interpretation of it. I'll check in terms of if he wanted the more artist description, or if it was. I think he just wanted the title, and that would be okay.
and not his name?
But sorry, title and name, but it just not his, he had like a paragraph description when he presented to the public. I don't think he wanted that on there, because I think he wanted people to interpret for themselves.
What was the title again?
Gray matter.
Gray Matter. Now, isn't that?
I think that's great. Yeah, I think it should. We just have like what Jeff's saying is important. I think that where there's some consistency. So every sculpture that we're part of has our name, the sculptor's name, the title of the piece, and maybe the date, and so I think that's fine. Then the question is that does it look exactly the same for everyone, or would the artist want it to, would Ned's version of that want to actually look very different than Michael's version? And are we okay with that? Or is it too much to ask the artist to even take that on? They're already spending probably more money than they're given to do the sculpture. Or should we just do it for them in a way, and this is the template, and here you go, and this is what it's going to look like. I think that's kind of the questions that come up for me.
Yeah.
And I think this is, related to the topic that, Jen recommended we agendize regarding utility boxes, which has to do with potential clutter and in the city and continuity of different elements within the fabric of the city.
So in Seattle, when we had, it was like a branding, your idea is almost like branding certain things, right? So we had there was one way to tell it was one of our projects, which is
Yeah.
a small thing. Now, if Ned wants to put on a whole second, wants to pay to do a plaque to explain his thing, that's also part of his piece, same with Michael's. But for us to be able to put like a sponsored by Sebastopol Public Arts Committee, I think would be nice, and to have those be the same throughout, then that helps brand us and brands the city's
Yeah.
local art in a way.
Right, it makes it more recognizable as this is part of the city's inventory or the city's work of the Public Art Committee.
I think that's an
I-
excellent idea.
Yeah,
And,
I think we could offer that. That's what we're offering as part of the process.
mhm.
And if some artist doesn't like that or has a different idea, we can talk about that a way to adapt it potentially, but it still has to have that branding that we've come up with, right? That still has to be part of it.
So we
Right.
need to come up with branding. And Jen, what was the recognizable quality in Seattle?
Well, we used the city of Seattle. It was actually, our group was created by the Washington State Legislature. So there was, their symbol. Same with this would be I would love to see it just have our logo, the city of Sebastopol logo, and then just basically say sponsored by Sebastopol Public Arts Committee. Something simple, but branded.
So branded with the city logo. That's the recognizable brand that we want to use?
That is the brand, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's who's paying for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's
Right, yeah, it would be City of Sebastopol. I would say we probably want to say Sebastopol's Public Art Committee and City Council,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just so
I
that
would
we're.
love that. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm thinking to say, rather than sponsored, commissioned by.
Mhm.
I like that, yeah, it's not a sponsorship, it's a.
Yeah.
And I had another question off subject, but do we have a date closer for Michael McGinnis's piece that we can actually start? I would love to see a planning of kind of like an unveiling, not maybe just at least something where we could go out there and take some pictures and maybe.
I think there should be a dedication
Sure.
ceremony,
Yeah,
and
so-
yeah, so Jen, I do have a budget for that so that we can advertise it and have a nice kind of opening, whether that's reception or in the library meeting room or whatever it is. It's hard to tell with COVID fluctuating, but we
take a
do
couple
have
of
a
pictures of
budget for something like
in
that.
front of
Yes.
it, send it, we can do a little press release, send it to the Gazette and the Press Democrat, see if anybody wants to pick it up. It's just a fun little thing, but for our first one too, finally, I would love to see just, a couple of pictures, Michael, and I want to just plan that ahead to make sure everybody's available and see if we can.
Yeah, I think that's probably still, I think next month he'll probably have an ETA.
Okay,
And that'll still be a month or two out. So I think I think there's time for it. But yeah, I definitely have, every time I talk to him, it's like, okay, so do you have an ETA yet? So that we can, even if it's a ways out, obviously I need to coordinate with the library as well, for a couple, if we're going to use their meeting room at all as part of that. But yeah.
Going back to the plaque, I mean, it sounds like we want to have a consistent, recognizable plaque. And I think we need to design that. And I'm just thinking just simply to say title by, artist name, commissioned by Sebastopol Public Arts Committee and Sebastopol City Council, and the year.
Mhm.
So how's that? And hopefully it would be like I imagine cast bronze, but I don't know what what would be possible.
How many languages do you want to put that in?
I would just do English.
English and
Really?
Klingon.
If you open that up, then you just,
Klingon, that's it.
what? What?
It was a joke. I said English and Klingon.
Yeah.
See, you have to include that too, and it just gets infinite. So, anyway, so we need to design that, and we need to have that ready for Ned's and for the library sculpture for Michael's. So how can we?
Do we have a plaque maker in town that? I can-
So we use for all of our city types of things. I think we use DNS Awards. It's on Pioneer in Santa Rosa. They
Okay.
do like the name plaques and stuff for that. I think they do awards and trophies and other things like that as well, I think.
And what material is realistic, if not cast bronze?
Yes.
Maybe I'll go down there and talk to them about something budget friendly. Are you interested in me doing that, or at least calling them?
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be
Wonderful.
helpful. I would think something that's metal with an enamel paint on it for the logos and the text would probably be, something. It needs to obviously be a metal that is. Well, I'm thinking for the gray matters is gray, so I'm thinking like either stainless steel, which is what that material is, or aluminum. Stainless steel is going to be harder and less bendable over time. I don't know what the price points are on these, but it's, a small piece of, we're not talking about anything big. It's,
Right?
yeah.
The metal stake, and we can just set, or I don't know, for the wall.
So for the, how that would work for, and maybe I can talk to Dante about that as well in terms of the NetCon sculpture. For the library sculpture, it could be epoxied or somehow adhered on the wall, or on the, somewhere on the library wall, whether that's in the corner, the lower right corner or lower left corner of where the sculpture is, probably the lower right, since that's closer to the walkway.
Okay.
And then for Ned's, possibly, he's got to have some base on that.
Yeah, or maybe that
I'll
is
ask
something
him.
that's somehow stuck in the ground. That's a tougher
Or
one since
his
it's
could
in the
even
middle
be
of a field.
Base.
What?
Ned's could also possibly be attached to his base, since he.
That's what I was thinking,
Station.
rather than, because
Mm,
something that
mhm.
cannot be removed.
Right. Okay, that makes
Someone
sense.
might want to just take it home as a trophy.
I'll look into
Um,
that.
okay.
I'll send you a couple of options, Carrie. And then if you feel
Okay.
like sending that.
That would be great. Yeah.
And would you, yes, send it to me, because I'm going to be getting in touch, or maybe I'll wait to get in touch with Ned. And, can you find out, also like what, if there are any colors? I'm not talking about the logo, I'm talking about the sign, and
Hey, mhm,
not shiny, or what texture and so on.
got it.
Thank
Another
you.
thought is,
Terrific.
I don't know if those finishes are anti-graffiti or not, or, if things-
Stainless steel is because you can always basically rub it off. Yeah. And that's why I'm suggesting some sort of enamel paint, because that's going to be a lot harder than an ink or anything like that. But I'm sure that the sign people, the award people probably have done that type of signage before, and probably have
Great.
recommendations.
They're actually, yeah, and they probably have limited palette, I would imagine, of what they do. If they're making, trophies for Little League, there's not going to be a lot of choices. So if it may be that doesn't work, and we have to go to a metal fabricator or someone else. So
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I would think the city has had something like this made before, and if
I
this is.
suspect so. I'll ask. I have a
company-
department head meeting Wednesday
If it isn't,
afternoon,
let
so I
Jen
will
know.
ask that question.
If it's not the company, let Jen know what is.
Yeah.
She doesn't
I will
have to
do
do
that.
that research.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, any other updates for agenda item B for the Public Arts Project update? Okay, let's move forward to C, Item C, potential sculpture sites for future calls. And I'd like to just preface this that maybe I missed something, but could we also make that not just sculptures, but just future calls?
I'm sorry, that's my bad.
Okay.
Yes,
So potential future calls. Does anybody?
potential sites for future art calls, yes, is what I
Great.
should say.
So I've done some preparatory work around Spooner Park and also Petaluma Avenue closer to town. Carrie, I was unable to open the photo attachment for some reason. My computer would not download that. So I don't know if that's something you could put up. I also was able to finally get in touch with Una Glass, but I thought if we just want to look at these photographs first.
Oh, we saw this, right? Yeah.
Right, so Jeff, if you want to just tell me when to move to next and if you're describing these.
Yeah, so this is the Joe Rodota trailhead at Petaluma Avenue.
Can I say, I went by and looked, and if you look to the right of that bench, there's a nice spot right there.
Yeah, there's
Yep,
some other photographs in here that might show that
Yeah.
better.
that's a very nice spot.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I mean, sure, right there.
Thank you.
Go ahead. That just, yeah. Mhm.
Hmm.
Next. So I take
yeah.
that's the area you're speaking about, Margie,
Yeah,
I believe.
it's nice because you really can see it as you move into town.
And this is across the street from the trailhead. So the city lot by Hop Monk looking straight on.
Mhm.
And this is over there to the right of that utility pole is that spot. Same view.
Nice thing is pedestrians and bicycles often are reading here. So it's a moment of pause along the trail.
Hmm. And now this is, if you were standing close to the trailhead, now looking the opposite direction towards the city lot and Hop Monk, which was another site. And Warren had mentioned this site as well.
Can we maybe have any brief comments as we go through rather than wait until afterwards, so we can do it while we're looking at the picture? Any comments
Well,
people
my
might have
general
on the
comments-
spots?
My general comments from having been there are that the Rodota trailhead would probably be best seen by pedestrians. There's a lot of tree growth, a lot of leaf, a lot of branching, and in general, a piece, whatever it may be, may not be as visible from there. Besides, traffic coming through passes that place pretty fast unless it's backed up. Whereas the other side, Hop Monk, in my opinion, far more visible to vehicular use, but also pedestrians that are going along Petaluma Avenue towards and away from town.
What is city property over there on that side?
So I believe this whole parking lot. So let me just see if I can.
So there's another shot that zooms in.
Excuse me. So I believe this whole area,
Mhm.
this whole bay, it's a little confusing with Hop Monk signage, but this is all, I believe, public parking.
I had the opposite response, and I went by in a car and by foot. I thought the spot south of the bench was very visible to cars and very uncomplicated, whereas the Hop Monk was very cluttered and distracting, and people thinking about whether they're going to be turning there, and it's just more congested.
So here, my feeling was this is more open than across the street. So again, depending on what the piece would be, there might be the necessity of moving a couple of things in here. I know that Hot Monk's sign is right there underneath that tree by the sidewalk, correct? Yeah.
Right, although that's a temporary sign, I think, but sort of during COVID kind of a thing. So, that was, we've been pretty lax on signs as for our businesses locally in the last year, because a lot of them are just trying to survive. And so, the temporary signs are still temporary. They're not going to be necessarily grandfathered in forever.
And that's
So this
public
is clearly
land,
one of those.
that's public land right there?
Let's see, I am actually just pulling up so that we can see the delineation between those, and I'll show that on my screen in a moment.
Let's see, seeing part of our idea of one of these sites is, as we've been talking about, a sort of gateway. So it seems to me like further south is better than, so there's not confusion with Hot Monk and what's happening there, but. if it's
Right, so this
on that
is
side.
this is the little lot that's accessible, and actually it does look like they own that first bay,
I
sorry.
think that's, yeah.
that first bay of parking. So they do actually own up until that drive aisle, and then this, which is former city right of way, that kind of comes in from the trail, is city, as is this.
Mhm.
And I believe actually nope, that's not, that is the,
Mortuary.
yeah, that's the mortuary.
Yeah, so
But
right
this is
there where
this is the
sea-
one where the chamber is, behind the chamber.
Right. So right by the sea of the creek, in a way, seems to me like that corner right there would be the best spot on that side. It seems like on the other side, there's, with a little bit of tending, cleanup, there'd be
Mhm.
a really nice spot over there too. Might have to rebuild that bench, but.
So I think it's important to be clear. So Carrie, if you go back, that is Hot Monk property, correct? After what you just showed us in plan view.
Right, so it looks like where it says Hot Monk parking there is actually Hot Monk parking along this line. And so it's everything from the driveway south is actually city property.
And how deep is the right of way in there?
It looks like it's just to the back of the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. Well, then we should probably forget that photograph.
Oops. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if the Hot Monk were interested in allowing us to have artwork there, that's a potential. It is at the beginning of a city parking lot.
I'm
Did you want to
sorry.
go down to Spruce Spinner, or did you need me to go back for something?
Unless there's any other comments about the Hot Monk and Redota trailhead spots.
Well, the Hot Monk side, if it is owned by non-publicly owned land, then again, we are entering into the idea, which I would love to approach, that we can start putting art on other pieces of property.
Mhm.
If that, that includes the utility boxes, which is coming up next week, which is going to be, or next month, that's going to be another thing. I would love to just have that, we can do art other places than publicly owned land. Otherwise, this Hot Monk side gets rolled out. And then again, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the entrance to Joe Redota county owned?
Well, we got permission on that. And
Yeah, so the trail is
So we get
owned by
permission.
a public entity. It's regional parks, but
Well,
But
we
it's a
get permission.
governmental thing, and we did have a long discussion already about putting it on private property. which of course can be revisited and revisited, but these are to me, these are primary. These are the 4 gateways. And I would not want to put it on a private property that who knows what's going to happen to it in the future. So if we want to put it on private property, I'd be open to considering that more, but not for the 4 gates. That's my view.
But maybe this is a topic for another time, but I appreciate what you're bringing up, Jen, because Sebastopol really does have a limited number of flexible, open, city-owned spaces to locate, really effective public art, that it might definitely be worth our time looking more deeply into private land and what kind of, agreement can be entered into with those property owners that would perhaps safeguard the art into the future.
And public art is temporary. So much public art is temporary. So, it's not going to last forever anyway. And, some stuff might, but even our own signs in the city have been moved and stuff. So it's just something that I would really like to, not just rule out, but especially on the Spooner Park side, there's just not a lot of room. So anyway, we can move on to Spooner Park so Jeff can show that and show us his ideas. No matter how many times I feel like we've ruled out Spooner Park, that again keeps coming back up. So let's see what you have this time.
So I just took a series kind of coming in from, looking from the south towards Spooner so you could get a sense for what it's looking like. I also included some of these just striped median areas there. I don't know what, I guess that's all Caltrans or control those striped median areas.
Yes, all of the roadway portions are going to be Caltrans, and I can't imagine if it was so difficult to get something off the side of the right of way for NetCon, I can't imagine they would allow for liability and other safety reasons something to go in within the roadway. So unfortunately, and it is not a pretty, that should be a median that's planted up or something, but it's unfortunate. I don't think that would be an easy one for art.
I don't think the content matters if, that's Caltrans is Caltrans, but would that be the case for Spooner Park then? Because it's got Caltrans highway on both sides?
Well, no, so the park itself is owned by the city.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to say, it's a shame that Caltrans is not more open-minded, because some of those sites are far more visible, particularly here, for both directions by having it out further from the Spooner Park site, but it is what it is. So you could pause on that one for a moment, Carrie. So that shot kind of shows us some of the conflicts with siting art. Other than the stop sign, you've got the signage and the solar dragon and trees. Now, I did finally reach Una Glass and yesterday, and we spoke about that. She gave a little history, which I'll share later, but she's very pro public art in Spooner. And I mentioned the possibility of moving one or more of the solar pedestals. She seemed open to that. She gave me the name of Daniel, who works with the company that installed them, if we want to find out what the potential cost would be and the underground cabling, et cetera, to have to move one or more of those. And then we also spoke a little bit about signage, which Carrie, you've also brought up. And I guess there is some new signage, correct, in town that's been installed. At least that's what Una shared.
Right. There is a wayfinding program signage design that was done a few years back. We are installing it in phases. And so we have I think the first phase, which is the pedestrian signage and wayfinding, that is, I think there's over by the Peace Wall, by the cinema across from the police station, there's sort of a map signage. I think there's also one in the plaza. And then there are various smaller signs directing to different places. The other future phases of it, one is signage for city parking lots. So wayfinding to parking. Pedestrians are put first, then the cars. And then there's also, I think we have a couple of these installed, like the signage for the for Ives Park. We have additional signage for other city buildings as part of that. That was designed. So you see right by the sculpture garden, there's the Ives Park signage that's pretty new. I think it's like green or sort of teal and blue colored. I don't think we have any. I would have to look at that. I don't know if we have monument signs slated for Spooner Park in terms of welcome to the city, sort of a larger city sign like that, but I can look into that.
So I also went by there, and that was my thought, Jeff, was if we could move, like, say, the last two panels and possibly update the sign, the city sign, there would be a spot, and that's more south, which is what Lars was talking about, and it's very prominent. That front area is not so much under trees.
Mhm.
And I'm even wondering, how, does the city have any plan to update the solar? I think that was installed quite a while ago, and I wonder if it's going to be updated at all.
Just needs to be cleaned off, and the solar panels should just work fine.
Okay.
If you're
Yeah, normally you wouldn't
moving
upgrade
panels,
those.
moving panels requires, trenching, electrical infrastructure. So unless literally the city is willing to get rid of a panel, which I doubt,
Yeah.
to me, it just seems sort of like a non-starter. And to me, it's a beautiful piece of work on its own. I think the signage in that location is the thing that needs to be fixed. The panels should stay as they are.
Carrie, if you want to scroll through some of those.
Is there more on the Spooner Park?
Yeah, I have some more information. So Una shared her thoughts, which would be, potentially to move some of the panels, and then perhaps even she volunteered her idea, maybe if there was like a dragon's head or tail that might possibly be the artwork. But as you can see, unless these panels right here are moved, we're really working with a pretty compressed area. And the panels themselves would definitely, in my opinion, interfere with the art, because again, this is a prominent location. And I'm sure there's a lot of vehicle trips. I don't know if you have that data, Carrie. Otherwise, I was going to call Steve Weinstein and see if he had it, but just for our own discussion. But
I don't have them, but I can actually just email him right now. So I've got his contact information.
thanks for that.
I have a silly question, which is, I went by it and I don't see a dragon. I was saying to myself, where's the dragon? Is it that the shape of where the panels are is supposed to be a dragon? Is that the idea?
I think it's the up and down nature of the elevation of the panels. I think that's my sense of it. It has a little bit of an undulation in the elevation of the different panels. So the fact that it stretches out over a distance and they're at slightly different heights, that's how I've always interpreted the solar dragon.
Right.
I saw the elevation change, but I didn't see any dragon.
Okay, can we move forward on Spooner so we can move on to see if
Sure.
other people have stuff to talk about as well?
Yeah, so I'll try to finish this up. So briefly, again, finishing the conversation with Una Glass. The intention back when it was designed and installed was for it to not be boring, and that's why they have the winding nature of the panels. It was also considered somewhat trend-setting at that time, Sebastopol being only the second California city to install solar like that. And also volunteered maybe trying to make Spooner a little more user-friendly, like benches or something else. Although you've got to cross at least 1 to 2 streets to get there, which is not always the most comfortable thing for every pedestrian to do. But,
Yeah, one of the, Jeff, if I can, just because there's a couple of things going on the other side of Spooner, we are, which is, I believe, Palm Avenue. You can see the Palm, the specialty clinic signed here, but on that side, there is on next Tuesday, the city council meeting, the council is going to be considering making that a one-way. And right now it's simply by restriping it, so not changing the asphalt. And that's because of the police chief's recommendations regarding some traffic safety issues. That street also does not have sidewalks, so it's a little difficult to get to Spooner Park since there's no sidewalks to it. If the one-way works well, we have discussed, hey, could we take out some of that right away and make it, have a sidewalk, probably on the north side, but there are some questions about, well, could we make it easier to get into the park, and could we do that? So that's a longer range project. It's probably, I would say, 3 to 5 years out, just given the logistics and the expense in terms of our capital improvement plan. So there is a potential in the future for better access on the north side from the north side of that park. But right now, yeah, there are no sidewalks or crosswalks to get there.
Okay, anything else on Spooner before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if it's okay, I'd like to, gather a little more information to share later at the next meeting, perhaps. And Carrie, if I could ask you a few questions after this meeting.
Okay, great. Just because it is Spooner Park that we're talking about, can I jump in and share my screen for a super quick little oh, I am disabled for sharing right now.
Yeah, I just made you a co-host, so as soon as that pops up on your side,
Okay.
You should be able to share.
Right across the street from Spooner is Art and Soul. This is owned by the South Point Shopping Center, the old Aubergine. This one has been there forever. This is right at Spooner. So I have already been in talks. Now, I would, of course, if this would be a small project, kind of like the Black Lives Matter mural. A couple $1,000, you get a mural. I have gone through, I've met the owner of the building. I've talked to Margaret and Sabina, the owners of Art and Soul. We put together all kinds of, mood boards on, what kind of art we wanted to put there. Some sort of welcome to Sebastopol mural. We've got just ideas on and on about what could happen here. And I like the idea of saying good things happen here. Welcome to Sebastopol. This is hugely visible. It's wide open. It is at the entrance of town. And yeah, it might not last forever, but the owners like the idea. They don't want to pay for it. And the Margaret and Sabina, they're doing as much as they can. I don't want to see them have to put any money into it. But if it could be matched with some sort of the city funds for improving the building improvement. So either this is something I do on my own, not including, I want to do this anyway on my own. If Public Arts Committee would be interested in talking about doing something with private property, I see right at Spooner Park, right there at the entrance, there is an opportunity. I could remove myself from the equation and say I'm my conflict of interest. And then if you guys are interested, there's an idea. There's a great wall right there. It could be a beautiful way to enter town. It's a huge welcome to Sebastopol. And as you know, they really do like their murals down there because the car wash is also owned by the same group, the South Park Shopping Center group.
Yeah.
And they're doing new murals right down there too. Someone's going to do a mural on the side of Art and Soul. We could do it as a welcome to Sebastopol mural, something really fun and really beautiful and memorable as folks drive in on that side of town. So
Works for me. That looks great.
and I've already proposed it to everybody down there, Margaret, Sabina, and the owner of the Southport part. They like it. So maybe that's something we put on the agenda next time, is just an idea. This is what could happen on private property. This is why I think it should just be opened as an option. And of course, none of those were all just fun drafts we put together really quick just to show those guys. But you know, anybody else who had other ideas or stuff, just throwing it out there. So from that, let's move on and see if anybody else has any ideas for future potential sites for art. Lars or Margie, you have anything?
No.
Not right now, no.
Okay, and then Jeff brought up his, and there's any others we could move on unless there's something else. Okay, well then let's move on to the planning department report.
Okay, my report is pretty simple this round. Let's see, we do have a couple of, just speaking of facade improvement, new facades in town. And so one of those is Spiritworks Distillery, which was part of the a grant from the DRB and the city. Also at Sonoma Chocolatiers, some new signage and a couple of new awnings in town, in downtown. I would say we do have, so we're awarding those now on a quarterly basis, and the city council did fund to the tune of $20,000, which is, I think we spent about 19,000 last year, so which is great because it's been underprescribed in the past. So if you do know of businesses in downtown, or actually it's open to all of town, but if you know of anyone who's interested in applying for that, it is a 75% match from the city to for facade improvements.
Gary,
Other
I think,
things.
I think Bear Radiance is doing their work right here too.
Are they doing it right now? Great, excellent. Yeah. Yeah, so we had actually moving it to be something that was a quarterly deadline instead of just open. I think it's helped people focus on getting their applications in.
Yeah.
And having the DRB review them. I think it's a great way of creating some additional excitement and also getting the design review board's input on that. So, and I think Lars, from what I heard at the last DRB and from others, are willing to help the program, and I appreciate that. Let's see, other things, the associate planner recruitment. I did
Excuse me,
have
could I
a
ask-
candidate.
Could I ask you a couple questions about the thing you just mentioned?
Sure.
What is it called?
It's called it's a facade improvement program, and it can include things like new signs for businesses, new awnings, actual facade improvements. Like I think Portico did an inset for having some sort of courtyard seating at the front of their building. We have had people do, painting. Bohemian Stoneworks, I think, actually got an award to repaint their building. It can be new windows and things like that that are more structural as well. And so the city has a program where you can apply for that. It can't be for work that's already done, but it is last year during COVID, the council upped the amount, the match to 75%. It used to be 50% match, and it's now 75% to help defray the cost for business owners. And I believe the maximum award is $2,500 for a single applicant.
Can this include murals and mosaics?
I would say it could. Those are things that can improve the limitation is that it needs to be visible from the public right of way, since it's supposed to be improving the facades throughout town.
So that's another possibility for what Jen was talking about.
I was considering doing that if it was going to be a Sebastopol Public Arts project. We would have to come up with some of the money. I'd just rather not see Sabina and Margaret have to put out money for something that they're struggling, you know, they're the little art store in town that just went through COVID. So, you know, this would be a short and fast type of thing. See if there was some facade improvement or public arts committee money.
Right. But yes, Margie, if someone wanted to do a mural to improve their facade, that would be eligible to apply.
And when is the deadline?
Oh, goodness. We just had the final.
There's multiples per year, I think.
Yeah, there's multiple per year. I can, let me email out to folks what that is. So I don't have to
Okay, thank
take
you.
your time looking it up right now.
Thank you.
All right. And then in terms of department, we do have the associate planner recruitment closing shortly. And we did have a recruitment and had someone that I was going to extend an offer, but she did accept another position, unfortunately. So we have reopened it and it's about to close. And unfortunately, because I met with her in person and she started spotting art all through town and was very excited about the public art committee component of it. But so hopefully the next candidate is as well. Otherwise, you're stuck with me.
Have we had
But that-
a candidate offer? Have we had a new candidate for the public arts committee?
For the public art committee, I do believe we have received at least one application. So I anticipate council will be having interviews for that soon. I believe that's still open, and I don't have the date, but that is.
I think it's
Just see.
tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I do have that right here. I can just check the date and confirm that. No later than July 15th. So yes, it does close tomorrow if you have anyone else who you know who might be sitting on the fence on that. But we have received one application. And usually that is enough for council to go ahead and interview and see if that if they want to appoint that. They're not required to, but they likely will. And so hopefully if that happens in early August, they can be on board for the sculpture garden review, which I believe is starting. Just to remind folks, we are canceling the August 4th meeting and instead having the meeting on August 18th next month. And we did that so that we could start to review the sculpture garden art call. And I think there were also a couple of folks out on vacation that first week.
Sorry, we're changing our meeting to the 18th, you're saying?
Yeah, so at our last meeting, when we were working out the final details for the sculpture garden deadlines and getting that stuff together for your review, we said that we would cancel the 4th, but we would have a special meeting on August 18th, which is a week and a half or so after the sculpture garden call is due. So we'll have time to put those together for you.
Okay.
Wait, August.
And I think that the other thing I wanted to update, council did adopt the budget, they did the first reading for the budget. They're scheduled to adopt it officially on the 20th for the regular budget. And they did adopt the capital improvement plan budget, which includes money for a new call this year for the honorariums and advertising that. So that was something we had requested. And then as part of their regular budget, there is the Zero Waste Committee and the Climate Action Committee are working on an upcycle art project, which we will pull to the Public Art Committee as the curator of art in town. And council did approve, I believe it's $3,500 for that. And so I don't know exactly where that's at. I'll get in touch and we'll get that scheduled for the Public Art Committee agenda at a future meeting as well.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, anything else, or should we move to adjourn?
Are we going to meet in person at some point?
Yes, I believe
serious
we will.
question.
Yeah, no, that's right. The city clerk is working on, it's actually going to be a little bit more of a hybrid format. So people who don't feel comfortable meeting in person or have some issues with that can still go in remotely. The governor has extended the ability to do remote meetings, I believe, through September. So I am following the city clerk's lead because there's a lot of technology and working out those details issues that is her responsibility. I don't have time for that, and it's her responsibility to do that. So I'm not. So we're following council's lead on that. I think for this committee, it's probably a little bit easier because of the fact that we don't have a huge number of public generally coming to that, and so like Lars, I know as part of the DRB, you've seen even tree removals where the conference room where we normally meet is packed, and so to allow for appropriate social distancing and safety measures, since there are variants and things still happening, that's why the clerk is working out the hybrid nature of it, and so I will hopefully at our next meeting I'll have a little bit more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
But I do think this is
August-
probably one of the first committees that will be able to kind of transition to that. Just like I said, given that it's usually just the committee members and not a huge, one or two people from the public.
The August meeting will be Zoom though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a question. Since the PAC has this mandate from the city council to try and get public art located particularly at the entrances, is there a document that basically simplifies the city-owned land along those 4 entrances only? I just think, for me, speaking for me, it would really make it easier and would really simplify things if we just had a document that showed those 4 entrances and the city-owned land, so that we could look at it and quickly say, okay, I'm going to go look at those, or let's discuss these. We're just talking about the north entrance right now. This is what we're looking at.
I don't know if there's a city council mandate on the 4 entrances, right?
No, that was actually from the Public Art Committee's
Of us.
retreat a couple of years ago. Yeah, to try to do those first, or sort of focus on having that at each of the entrance to town. So it's not a mandate, but it is the direction from that retreat.
It also was discussed at a recent city council meeting, and there was a lot of positive feeling about it
That's
from
correct,
the city
yes.
council.
Yes. Again, not a mandate, but yes, yes, we think this is a good thing to do. Yeah. So there was certainly support from the council for that.
Okay. So regarding vocabulary, is there something like that?
That's a map I would have to make, but it is something that I can work on in all my free time. I can try to do that if there are particular places. It's basically my going into GIS and identifying city property, but it's a little bit difficult because I can't simply highlight it in our GIS system because I can't highlight right of ways. So like the Bodega Avenue on the west side of town, there's that big green, lawn area on the south side of Bodega Avenue that is city owned. It's maybe something I could just do old school and take a black and white map and just highlight all the city parcels or city areas. That might actually be the low tech way of doing it and doing it more quickly for you, Jeff.
Or perhaps when you get that assistant hired.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's something that
I had a quick question. Jen, in the computer art map online, when Ned and Michael's sculptures go up, are those ready to be added, or can those be added?
Those, yeah, it can be added anytime.
Thank you.
All right, if that's it, we can wrap it up if somebody would like to move to adjourn. Or we could,
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, guys, if everyone's in favor, say aye.
I.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No.